For the satisfaction of one of the consequences of the properties of the organ Gurdjieff, a consequence which had been readily crystallized in the common presences of the majority of them, and called urnel, which the contemporary beings now call swaggering. You must know that thanks to the mentioned consequences of the properties of the organ Gurdjieff, most of the contemporary beings acquire in their presence a very strange need to evoke the expression in others of the being impulse called astonishment regarding themselves, or even simply to notice it on the faces of those around. The strangeness of this need of theirs is that they get satisfaction from the manifestation of astonishment on the part of others regarding their appearance, which exactly conforms with the demands of what are called fashions. That is to say, with just that maleficent custom of theirs which began there since the Ticleomitian civilization, and which has now become one of those being factors which automatically gives them neither the time nor the possibility to see or sense reality. This maleficent custom for them is that they periodically change the external form of what is called the covering of their nullity. Here, by the way, it is interesting to note that it has gradually become the rule in the general process of the ordinary existence of these three-brained beings who have taken your fancy, that changes of the appearance of the mentioned covering are governed by such beings there of both sexes as have already become worthy to become candidates for Hasnamus individuals. In this respect, the contemporary theaters turned out to be corresponding for your favorites because it is very convenient and easy for them to show off, as they like to say, their chic coiffures, or the specially tied knot of their cravat, or the daringly bared what is called kubaitarian part of their body, and so on and so forth, while at the same time they can look at the new manifestation of the fashions already actualized according to the up-to-date indications of those same candidates for Hasnamus individuals. To get a clear picture of what these contemporary actors do during their swaggerings in these theaters, you must first be told about yet another exceedingly strange illness existing there under the name of dramatizakering, the predisposition to which illness arises in the presences of certain of them, thanks only to the carelessness of what are called their midwives. This criminal carelessness on the part of their midwives is that in most instances, before doing her job, she calls on the way at the houses of her other clients and drinks there rather more than usual of the wine offered her, so that while she is doing her job, she unconsciously makes exclamations fixed in the process of the ordinary existence of your favorites, like the exorcism of what are called their magicians, and at the moment of, as they say, its appearance in God's world, the new unfortunate being first imbibes the words of this maleficent exorcism. And this exorcism consists of the following words: "Hey, you, what a mess you've made!" Well, my boy, thanks to that criminal carelessness on the part of the midwife, the unfortunate, newly appeared being acquires in his presence just that predisposition to the mentioned strange illness. If such a three-brained being there who has acquired at his first appearance the said predisposition to the illness of dramatizakering should, by the time he reaches the age of a responsible being, know how to write and should wish to write something, then he suddenly gets this strange illness and begins wiseacring on paper, or, as it is said there, composing various what are called dramas, The contents of these works of theirs are usually various events which are supposed to have occurred or which might occur in the future, or finally, events of their own contemporary unreality. In addition to this, among the symptoms of this peculiar illness, there appear in the common presence of the sick being 7 other very specific particularities. The first is that when this strange illness arises and is already functioning in the presence of a being, particular vibrations are spread around him, which act on his environment, as they say, just like the smell of an old goat. The second is that from the change of the inner functioning in such a being, the exterior form of his planetary body undergoes the following changes. His nose is held aloft, his arms, as it is said, akimbo, his speech is punctuated by a special cough, and so on. The third, that such a being always becomes afraid of certain perfectly harmless natural or artificial formations, as for instance what are called mice, hands clenched in a fist, the wife of the chief stage manager of the theater, the pimple on his nose, the left slipper of his own wife, and many other formations outside of himself. The fourth particularity makes him lose entirely all capacity for understanding the psyche of the surrounding beings similar to himself. The fifth, that inwardly, and also in his manifestations, he criticizes everybody and everything not connected with himself. The sixth, that the data for the perception of anything objective are more atrophied in him than in all other terrestrial three-brained beings. And the seventh and last particularity is that there arise in him what are called hemorrhoids, which, by the way, is the sole thing that he carries with modesty. It usually then further happens there that if the sick being has an uncle who is a member of one or other of their parliaments, or if he himself gets acquainted with the widow of a former businessman, or if the period of his preparation for becoming a responsible being has for some reason or other been spent in such an environment or under such conditions that he has automatically acquired the property called slipping in without soap, then what is called the producer, or as he's also called, the owner of lambs, takes this work of his and orders the mentioned contemporary actors to reproduce it exactly as it was wiseacred by this being who has fallen ill with this strange illness of dramatizing. And these contemporary actors there first reproduce this work themselves alone, without strangers, and they reproduce it until it is exactly as the sick being himself has indicated, and as the producer has ordered. And when finally their reproduction proceeds without the participation of their own consciousness and feelings, and these contemporary actors themselves are completely transformed into what are called living automatons, then, and then only, with the help of those among them who have not yet become entirely living automatons, for which reason they later acquire the name of stage managers, they do the same thing under their direction, but already now in the presence of other ordinary beings assembled in these contemporary theaters. Thus you can now, from all I have just said, easily conclude that besides many definitely maleficent consequences, which I shall soon touch upon more in detail, these theaters cannot of course provide anything for that lofty aim which the Babylonian learned beings then had in view when they created for the first time such a form.